Hey, it's Anthony Meisner with Land Title. I came to bring you your Boulder County Market update for the month. Let's dive in. We can look at the entire year's worth of data finally, really see what happened in 2025. And, you know, over time, we can really see some seasonal shifts here, just some behavior changes. Number one, sellers really came out of the gate last year early. And as inventory increased, we started to see it taper off faster as inventory expired with frustrated sellers in the marketplace because buyer behavior really didn't change much from 24 to 25. Now, look at this year to date change. We actively had about 18% more inventory on the market. So clearly it was more contentious for sellers. Under contracts went up just a little bit, 3.6%, with resulting in about 2.8% more closings than this time last year. Year over year, we had price compression by 4.5%. Definitely not all in the same place or same product type, but there's definitely some problems with the actual retention in housing prices because of that excess of inventory. Now, let's dive into that just a little bit. Here's active units of inventory, very specific. Now, we can look at it by area. Certain places have had significantly more inventory than others. But year over year, the city of Boulder is up 24% in units. Erie's actually down in units because it has had a lot of inventory in 23, 24, and it's finally getting eaten up by those buyers that are out there purchasing. What a marketplace where price per square foot's a little bit lower, and so as money is expensive, it seems to be a better location for a lot of buyers. The one that kind of surprised me here though is just Louisville is way down. That caught me a little bit off guard because we didn't take into account how much the Marshall Fires rebuilds were getting sold off. And you can really see that finally some of that's coming back down to more normal levels. You're seeing it in Superior and in Louisville, where significantly less inventory than we had a year ago, even though we're in this rising inventory environment. So that was pretty unique. If we look at it by month supply of inventory, let's look detached and attached separately, because by the time we come to the end of the year, look at this. Most homes have been taken off the market. There's really no inventory in Louisville, Superior, Lafayette, Erie, or Longmont. They're all under 2 months of inventory. So it's going to be a rush to the market with sellers, right? I mean, people who get on early are going to have buyers active and go under contract. The city of Boulder still down to 2.7 months of inventory for the detached market. That's pretty reasonable, right? Niwot, same thing. But it just appears that so many people have expired listings that you're going to see them come back on because we had so much more inventory last year than we did prior. Now, the attached market, not necessarily the same case. Yes, there's a lot less inventory than there was a few months ago. I mean, look at Lafayette, for example. 50% of its inventory was pulled off the market basically in December. So certain months definitely are going to be lower than others, but you will see this rise and you're going to see the same sort of behavior until buyers change their behavior. So look at the seasonality when you're looking at when to list a house or if you're working with buyers, because truly sellers have a better chance of selling in the beginning of the year in that first quarter. So if you're to market early, you go under contract early, it really is going to help. Now, if you look at the days in MLS, it might take longer to sell in some of those markets, but a lot of that could largely be due to the fact that if inventory is carrying over, those days on market are adding up, where a lot of this gets reset with people pull it off the market for 30 days and relist a home. Doesn't exactly give us the best days in MLS, right? That completely resets things. So it's like a fresh new listing. So this does trend like a horseshoe every year. You can kind of see it on the chart there, where the fastest part of the market is usually around June. And then we see the slowest part of the market in that usually January or December timeframe. Okay. Days in MLS, as far as attached is concerned, is very different. We have such a higher level of inventory for longer. It bounces around a bit, but you really are seeing that 60, 70 days on market. Clearly this last month, some stuff that had been sitting for a while has sold and really boosted that up. It's a lot higher in the city of Boulder, so that's probably part of that. But the fastest market's Lafayette, right? And Lafayette's been one of those that's been a little more challenging with a higher inventory level this year. All right, let's talk about average and solds by price range. We have a year-to-date total here, which is really the entire year's total. So this is a fun one to look at. The 3+ million market was down about 11%. But a lot of that got pulled into that 2.5 to 3 million market as people got a little bit more realistic on price. We sold 71 units compared to 39 in 2.5 to 3 million. So as people got realistic on price, way more luxury sold this year, even over 2 million. We had 10 extra sales from 2 to 2.5 million. That's almost a 10% increase. So the sales numbers have looked great. The active units on the marketplace in the last month have obviously clearly come down, but year over year, we're still sitting at a higher level of inventory across the board, no matter what, if it's 3 million or more, or even if it's down to 400,000 than we've had prior. So more inventory means more for buyers to choose from, even going out and shopping early in the year. Now, if we look at it in the attached market, this is a really different world because we've had less sales take place. Some of those luxury sales, we've seen some really cool, unprecedented high sales that are attached in the city of Boulder. So you've seen a lot of luxury stuff doing well. 1 to 1.5 million has actually done better than it did in prior years. So some really neat stuff happening in the luxury market. But outside of people coming into Boulder, paying cash for something that they really like, we're really seeing some sluggish behavior because of the cost of those HOAs and just the affordability of this product. But as the prices start to come down, which we've really started to see, it will become a more affordable product again, even with a higher HOA. And it's going to be more desirable for people to start looking back in this direction. So in 2026, you should start to see this market act differently than what it has been doing, because the ball can only fall so far before it just makes sense to buy a condo or a townhouse again compared to a single family home. In the last few years, it's just made more sense from even a monthly payment standpoint to buy that single family home instead of a condo or townhouse. So I expect that to start to change over time here as we see come into the next year. The month supply of inventory and days on market by price range, this is a really useful one as you're putting listings on the market. Clearly, there's been not enough inventory on the market in December because people pulled stuff off. We're going to see that rise across the board, but even 3+ million, we're still at 13, 14 months of inventory. That could be in the 20s though by the middle of the year, right? I mean, that happens consistently, but you can tell that the days on market in MLS doesn't seem to matter too much by price range. It's just if it's actually marketed right and priced right, and if the home's buttoned up and people like it, it will sell, and the other stuff seems to just be sitting. So I think there's a really big argument here for condition of property. Now, if we look at it in attached, you can see here in the attached market, we have that 2.5, 3 months of inventory sitting there for most of those right now. If it's some more affordable condo product, 300, 400,000, 4 months of inventory, they're taking a long time to sell. Look at these, a lot of numbers in the hundreds. This is just a product where there's not as many buyers out there looking right now. Now, the luxury stuff, clearly it takes a very unique buyer, but when we find one, we're able to sell some cool stuff. Okay, let's talk price, because price has been really interesting over the course of the year. The detached single family home market, if you look at it by area, is really responding differently. Year over year in the city of Boulder in December, we were up about 3%. But if you look at it across the last 12 months, we have seen some price drops in the city of Boulder. 2.4% decrease in sales price. And this could largely be due to a bunch of things. Number one, the higher end market has finally come down and settled back into something that seems like buyers are interested in it again. So lower prices in some of those where people are maybe not getting what they paid for it in 2020 or 2021. Clearly, Louisville and Superior have had increases in prices, but when you build a more affordable or a newer product, it costs more than the old stuff. So we really truly are not even comparing apples to apples right now. As we kind of look through most of this market, most of the market in detached single family has compressed a little bit. We see a little bit of slippage there. Over the last 12 months as a county, we've seen just under 1%. So truly, I think when you're talking to clients about it, this market is very stable. Even in a very difficult time, we're not seeing prices dramatically fall, right? Now, if we look at the attached market, this is where you could experience a very different behavior. Lafayette saw a drop of 11.74% or 76% in the last 12 months. So year over year, it looks like a 20% change, but keep in mind when you don't have as many sales, that can fluctuate a little bit. The city of Boulder really has been selling more luxury product than not. So basically, we're just selling a different product in Boulder than what we've seen before. Less of those condos, high HOAs are selling, more of the newer, cool product that's being built is selling, and that's changing the composition up. Places like Longmont down 8%, Superior down 5.5%. Places like Erie, where you have a lot of townhouses that are in this mix, they really are very similar to the detached market, where they're only down about 1%. And, clearly places like, I guess Louisville and Superior are good examples of those, rebuilding some of this product, and you're seeing that change that composition as well. If you want to look at the volume of units, right, this is kind of why this is happening. So sold units and detached, we really had a pretty good year, 6% increase in sales for our detached single family homes. And this largely happened because as interest rates have slowly come down, or it's taken enough time, people are, tired of being in that home that maybe they bought during the pandemic, or if they have a life change, they have to move. And so they just have to sell, right? So buyers are increasing their behavior a little bit, and you're seeing more of that. So the first part of the year, it was very similar to 24, but the latter half of the year, really, especially as interest rates kind of have gotten a little bit better, you just had more buyer behavior for longer. And buyers are dictating this whole market because there's so many sellers that the buyers can choose when they want to buy. The vast majority of places that have seen big growth here, you did see way more sales take place in Superior at 39% more sales. You saw 8% more sales in the city of Boulder, and Louisville had 24% more sales. We had a drop off in Niwot and Lafayette was only down about 2%. But, even Erie and Longmont, 6% in Erie, 10% more sales in Longmont. Detached has done very well, and buyers have responded, right? Now, the attached market, this is where we've seen a lot of that slippage take place, which is why the prices have been falling, right? When you don't have as many buyers and you have a lot of sellers, this is what happens. You see prices come down, and attached product should be a more affordable product, right? If you have a choice, most people will pick to live in a single family home over a condo or townhouse. And it's become very apparent when you have 22% less sales taking place in Longmont, 11% less sales in Erie, and 13% less sales out in Lafayette. That's created that price compression in the marketplace. But 6% less sales across the county as a whole in the attached. And those don't necessarily balance out, right? Because we sell a lot more single family homes than attached homes. So comparatively, we did talk about it at the beginning, we're about 3%, 2.5% more sales than we had in 24 as buyers are slowly coming back to market. Last slide I have for you is our percentage sold price to list price. And this just tells you, who's being more favored than prior times, right? This doesn't include concessions. It doesn't include price drops. But what it does tell us at 97.5% is that buyers are a little more favored again than they were this time last year by 0.3%. So buyers are able to negotiate a little bit harder than they were a year ago. And I think that's the best way to take this slide. Clearly, back in 2022, 2021, when things were selling way over asking price on average, you can see that take place in this market. But there was definitely not as many concessions then, or any concessions in most cases, right? So you can really see here what's happening and how it's really stabilized, and the buyers control the situation. That's very clearly what started to happen here. So hopefully that helps. If you need any other data, market information, please reach out to me. I'm Anthony at Land Title, and we'll see you soon.